After you've read and taken notes and analyzed these characters, you're going to write a character analysis paragraph. And what I've done is I've given you a pre-write to help you get the information that you're going to need for that character analysis paragraph. So this has all of the components that you'll need for that analysis. The first thing is your topic sentence. Your topic sentence is what you want to prove about that character. So it's what you want to prove, and it's not just, okay, I want to prove this random thing, but what do you want to prove about their character? What kind of person are they? And you have to think about, what does the evidence tell you about that character? All right? So the first thing is going to be what you're going to prove about the character. Then I've given you space to put 3 pieces of evidence that help support that. So your next things are going to be the support. So what evidence are you going to use to prove that? So this is the topic sentence is what you want to prove. This is going to be the proof. Think of it as, this is the proof. The evidence, if someone tells you something, you're like, okay, well, prove it to me. They've got to give you evidence. Just like if someone says, this person committed a crime. Well, how are you going to prove it? You have to prove it with evidence. It's the same concept. If you're going to say that the monk is rebellious and that's what I want to prove, then I've got to give proof through evidence. I have to give solid evidence. Then the commentary, this is just where you're adding your explanation. So this is where you're going to add your explanation. So think of it as if you're in court and you're trying to prove that someone committed a crime, and you bring in all of this evidence and you put it there. They're not just going to set it in front of the person. They are going to explain how that evidence proves their point. And that's what you're doing, is you are trying to prove something about this character. You've given us the evidence, you've given us the proof, but you also need to explain how that proof leads back to the point that you're trying to make. All right, so with that being said, I have given you an example, and I gave you an example with the monk. So you're not going to use the monk as your character. So you have a choice of the knight, the squire, the nun, the parson, or the partner. And the reason you can't use the monk is because I'm using it as an example. So I've given you this example of how you're going to do your pre-write. In just a second, I'm going to show you how that pre-write is eventually going to become your paragraph. All right, so the topic sentence. The monk in the Canterbury Tales is openly rebellious despite his high rank as prior of the monastery. All right, so what do I want to prove? I want to prove that he's rebellious, right? So now I have to pick out evidence that he is rebellious. So let's look at the evidence that I came up with. The first piece of evidence that I have is that he was a hunter. Hunting was his sport, even though hunters are not holy men. So that shows that he's rebellious, right? Because the text says that hunting was a sport, but that hunters are not holy men. So then look at my commentary. My commentary is my explanation of how this proves that he's rebellious. As the prior, the monk should be setting an example by following the rules. Instead, he ignores the text and hunts as he desires, regardless of the expense. All right, so that's my explanation of how that evidence points to him being rebellious. Okay, also, I want to point out how I used the evidence. Notice that I did not just go and give big lines worth of evidence. I chose very small portions, and I put those portions in to the sentence. And this goes back to the video that you should have already watched about embedding quotations and adding quotes into analysis. All right, so, and then my second piece of evidence, besides ignoring what the text says about hunting, the monk also says, let Austin have his labor to himself. And then I give my commentary over to the side. Notice here that I also have a little bit of a transition, right? I didn't just jump straight into it. I said, besides ignoring the text about hunting, this is my transition from one piece of evidence to another. And then I've got my commentary over here. St. Augustine, or St. Austin is how it's worded, but that's St. Augustine, criticized lazy monks. So the monk's attitude towards Austin shows not only his unwillingness to do manual labor, but also his blatant disrespect for leadership. Okay, so this is my commentary. What is this? What does this prove? This proves his rebellious, and here's my explanation. Okay? And let's look at the last piece of evidence that I have. He wears fine gray fur, the finest in the land, as well as a gold pin that into a lover's knot it seemed to pass. So notice how I incorporated my quotes here, right? I did not just give you a full line of evidence. I have my own sentence with the evidence embedded into it. And then here's my commentary that explains how this proves. So not only is he wearing gray fur, but it is the nicest fur he could have, emphasizing the extravagance and expense which breaks his vow of poverty. Furthermore, the narrator believes the monk is wearing a lover's knot, suggesting a romantic relationship which breaks his vow of chastity. So notice that I have two sentences here for my commentary. So I have two sentences. Just because I say commentary doesn't mean it's only one sentence. It may only be one sentence, but it might be two. All right, and then you have to have a concluding sentence. These details prove the monk's unwillingness to abide by the rules and be faithful to his vows, which one would not expect from a high-ranking member of a religious community. So, what do you have to have? You have to have a topic sentence, a concluding sentence, and in between that, you're going to have three pieces of evidence. Each piece of evidence has its commentary. And then this is what you're going to have once you finish. You will have your paragraph to submit as your graded assignment for this week. So basically what I did, everything that I had in my chart is here. The only thing that I added was this transition right here. Although it's the purple. Although the monk's behavior and attitude reveal his rebellious character, his appearance shows that he has a disregard for his vows. So the reason that I have that purple sentence there, that's my transition, because the first two pieces of evidence were about his behavior and his attitude, whereas the last piece of evidence is about his appearance. So I just have that transition sentence. And I know what you guys are thinking. You're thinking, wow, that's a really long paragraph. Yes, it is. But you know what? This is a good, solid paragraph that gives evidence of what you're trying to prove. Okay? So with that, I want you to go through, I want you to fill in that pre-write. Once you get the pre-write done, you can then incorporate that and change it into your paragraph and get ready to submit that as well.